Welcome to the podcast, A Drink with Derek. Follow comedian Derek Richards on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe to his YouTube channel and watch all episodes of the podcast. Now grab a drink and join your host, Derek Richards.
Absolutely grab a drink and join your host, Derek Richards. Nice to see you. Welcome to the podcast, A Drink with Derek. I am Derek Richards here in Las Vegas, wearing my Vegas Golden Knights hat, and sadly, no playoff hockey here in Las Vegas for the first time in 5 years. That is a little depressing, but I don't know. What are you going to do? I'm not happy with the way the team produced this year. Not going to lie to you. They have Dave Chappelle's payroll, and the team was playing like open micers. That's all I'm going to say. Anyhow, I got a lot of dates coming up here in Michigan. Going to be in, I'm going to be in Bad Axe, Michigan on May 14th, Clinton Township on May 15th, Midland on May 19th, and Ann Arbor at Ann Arbor Comedy Showcase May 20th and 21st. All my dates are available online at DerekRichards.com. Also, my new Dry Bar comedy special is out. Go ahead and pick that up if you get a chance. And if you go ahead and use the promo code Derek Richards, as seen on the screen right there, you get 1 month free with your Dry Bar subscription. It is a super clean comedy show that can be viewed by everyone. It was shot in Provo, Utah, if that gives you a hint. Provo, Utah, in front of 50 people wearing masks. So let's see how this comes out. That was a lot of fun, man. It was a great experience. Dry Bar Comedy, go on their app, type in the promo code Derek Richards, get 1 month free with your subscription. And also, while you're online messing around, my album Double Down, which is not completely family friendly, is available on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon. Recorded live at Laughing Comedy Cafe in Fort Myers. Those guys down there are fantastic. It was a great experience to record that. I was just there last month, and it was a blast. So Double Down, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon. You can also pull it up on your Apple Music and pretty much anywhere that you go ahead and download stuff. And you can also see it on or hear it on Sirius XM satellite radio. But today, my guest is the newest member of the Irish Comedy Tour, comedian Michael Malone. He has a brand new special out called Wait and See. We're going to talk about that. He also has a doc series about comedians and trauma behind the punchlines called Monsters. 5 episodes are up at watchmonsters.com. You have seen this sexy man on Showtime, Comedy Central, Fox, getting dug with high, XM Radio. He also has another 1 hour special called Laugh After Death with over 2 million views on Amazon. And he has a book out called Dead Serious. Comedian Michael Malone joins me here on A Drink with Derek.
I'm an atheist, and it's always weird when you tell somebody you're an atheist. There's always, that tension. They're like, oh, you must worship the devil. I'm like, well, I don't even believe in the devil. I don't believe in God. I barely believe in myself. Telling somebody you're an atheist is a lot like telling somebody you're a vegan. There's just a lot of follow-up questions. They're like, really? No God. No God at all. Well, can you have Buddha? I'm like, well, I can have enlightenment, but only on my cheat days. It's weird being an atheist in this country.
The special Wait and See, which you can grab on May 6th. But right now you can see this beautiful bearded bastard right now, Michael Malone, who's at his home in California. Good to see you, my friend.
What's going on, bud? How are you?
For someone who is atheist, you look an awful lot like Jesus or one of the disciples. I'm just saying.
I got my follower beard on. This is
that's a good follower beard. I like that. I like the Apostle Last Supper look that you got going.
Yeah.
Well, before we go anywhere, I want to ask you, let me ask you this, because when did you become atheist? Because you grew up in the Midwest. You're from Ohio. You're from Ohio.
Yeah,
in the Midwest.
yeah.
I'm assuming there was religion, because I grew up Catholic. Oh. In Detroit. So it's you always church was involved with somebody. I don't recall ever knowing any atheists growing up.
I didn't either. I didn't know that was an option. I thought you just had to pick a team and go with that. I was Baptist by default growing up. my mom, we were like holiday religious. It's like, well, it's
Oh
Easter, we
yeah.
got to go to church. And you're like, okay. So I was very holiday religious growing up, but we didn't. The matter of fact, one of the last times I was at church, I was around 10, and I was with my grandmother, and our preacher looked like Bob Barker from The Price is Right. And I was with my buddy, and I didn't know that they were getting ready to go to prayer. And just as they went to prayer, I leaned into my buddy and I go, "Tell him what he's won, God." And my grandmother grabbed me by the ear and drugged me
Oh
out of
yeah.
church. And I had to sit in the car the rest of the time, and that was probably one of the last times I've been inside a God's house.
Listen, lucky you, seriously, because yeah, I was holiday religious also. Yeah, we went on Christmas, Easter, when somebody died, when somebody got married, or when the weather was too
Yep.
crappy for my dad to go golfing.
Yeah, and
Which is
so
completely
so
true.
I
If it
grew up.
was sunny and nice, like literally my little brother and I would look at the weather forecast the night before because I hated going to church. I just did, and I can't think of any kid
Right.
that really enjoyed it. If they say they enjoyed it, they're lying. They're human trafficked, and they need to say that.
Right.
No kid enjoys going to church.
Yeah.
And so I remember my little brother and I, we would watch the weather forecast and literally pray for rain on Sunday mornings so that we would. I can't believe I had to pray. I was praying to a God to not go see God the next day at his house.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
That's so great. Yeah,
Good to see you again, my friend. Good.
It's so good to see you. I was just gonna say, yeah, it's weird doing those jokes because when I was building the hour, I was doing it on tour, my regular tour dates. I do a lot in the Midwest and in Texas, and doing those atheist jokes in Texas was, I think they call it
How did that
asking
go?
for it.
Oh boy.
This lady in the second row one night, she just starts yelling at me, "You need Jesus, you need Jesus." And I stopped the show. I'm like, what's going on here? And she's like, you don't. I was talking about mental health and therapy, and she goes,
Right.
"You don't need all that. You need Jesus." And I said, well, can I express an idea to you real quick? And she goes, "Sure." And I said, what if you took all of that energy? Just imagine taking all of that energy that you're just letting go into the sky. Imagine pointing that inward and pointing it into yourself and being a better person and filling yourself with so much love and joy that it would overflow and it would spill over in your community and your family, and you could really do some good in your immediate family and in your community with all that love that's just pouring out of you because you're putting it inside yourself. Imagine doing that instead of letting it go in the sky. And she goes, "Nope, you need Jesus." And she got thrown out.
That's a great, but that's like almost a great political speech. I was literally going to write you in for 2024. That's great, guy. Can you imagine ending a political? Listen, if you took all that love that you threw out there and put it into yourself, and you would be a better person, and the community would be enriched, and you would be enlightened, and people around you would feel the joy. That's like a mic drop moment. And she goes, "Nope, you need Jesus."
Yeah, exactly. But that's how I feel about religion in general. When people ask me about it, I remember this documentary I was watching, and there was this. They were interviewing these people that were affected by the church that found God later in life, and they had two interviews, and one of them was this prostitute, and one of them was this gambler. And both of them had said the same thing. I was tired of living my life this way, and I begged God to save me. I begged God to change my life for me. I couldn't live like this anymore. And they both said, and after that, I changed. I stopped gambling. I stopped working the streets, this and that. And I couldn't help but think to myself, you did that. You found a point where you couldn't continue, that you didn't want to continue anymore. And you did that. You made that change, and you're giving it away. And I just kept thinking, imagine how powerful we would all be if instead of giving that energy away, you pointed it inward, and you became more disciplined and a better person, and all these great things that we talk about that we
Right.
give away to the sky. And you're like, imagine how powerful it would be. Imagine the change that you would see not only in your life but in your community and all that stuff. And
Well, and
that's
think
where
about
that
this
stems
too.
from.
Well, even what you're talking about with this gambler and this prostitute that did that. Now, maybe,
Right.
I mean, what they essentially did was they did bring that power inside themselves. I mean, they threw it out to
Right.
whatever God they thought was out there. And so instead of, in their mind, they framed it as God made this happen for me, when really at the end of the day, and anybody who's religious who's watching this or listening to this is going, you need Jesus. Both of you need it now.
Yeah.
Both of you heathen bastards need some
Oh, yeah,
Jesus.
heathen. And I do.
But
I
I
make it a
think,
point in the
but I
special-
think, you know what? And anything that makes anybody a better person, whatever catalyst you need to get to that point, if you think that God or a squirrel made it happen,
Yeah.
now everybody turned off. Now, I was with you until you compared God to a squirrel.
I was okay with it not existing, but a squirrel.
A squirrel,
yeah,
I can say, it's got a fluffy tail.
And that's what I say in the special too, you know, and on stage is I like to make a point that I'm not here to take religion away from you. Like, that's not what I'm here for. You know, if you have
Right.
it, that's great, because it makes people better. And if you need that in your life and you feel that's necessary, then that's great. Then do that. But it's not for me, you know. And
No,
that
you're
should
just
be
expressing
okay.
your opinion. You're not being disrespectful.
Right.
You're not saying anybody who
Right.
goes to church is an idiot. I mean, you're just saying this is my
Right.
personal belief system. And but for some odd reason, when we're on stage at a comedy club, people think that they're in the crowd. Now all of a sudden, it's interactive time. Now it's Q&A.
Yeah.
Now it's time for my comments. No, that's not how that's not how this works.
Yeah,
But
the worst
so
part,
good
her
to see you.
husband
We
was,
had
like,
to.
hyping her up. Yeah.
He was getting her hyped up. He was ramping her up on this.
Oh yeah, it was like a '90s rap
boy.
music video. He's like, get him, get him.
And then she gets tossed, and then he stays and watches the rest of the show and has a great time. Please tell me he bought some merchandise afterwards.
No, they got thrown out, and I got a standing ovation. You know, the Lord works in mysterious ways.
Exactly. Jesus got standing ovations. So did Michael Malone, who was with us on the Irish comedy tour this past March. Very unique segue, comparing a standing ovation and Jesus to the Irish comedy tour. Look at that sexy bunch right there. Are you going to find? Look at that. That's like a shot of a. You know what that reminds me of? Like Usual Suspects. Like the promo for it when they're all standing in front of the lineup.
This is definitely
no,
a
that
police
was
station somewhere.
It looks like a police station. It was actually backstage in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. We had some great times this past March. Fun couple of weeks that you had joined us on the tour, and so excited to have you on board for the future. What were you expecting going into it?
Oh man, honestly, I didn't know. I was so, what I wasn't expecting was fire chicken.
Fire chicken, by the way, our guitar player, Derek Kane, loves Fireball. And the logo on the front of it looks like some bizarre voodoo chicken. And so he calls it fire chicken. So, yeah.
And it's and he only drinks the little bottles, which are so great because he drinks like 30 in a night. Oh man. Yeah. I had so much fun with you guys, and I felt so lucky to be there with you guys and meeting. You know what? I didn't, even though I am Irish and I have that background, and and I've known that for years, and I've been to Ireland. It was the first time that I got to actually, ironically enough, learn more about the culture and my background and all that stuff. And that was really, really interesting, going to the different pubs, talking to people that are actually from Ireland that moved here with a dream, and they built something, even though it's just a bar in a small town, it's still like something that belongs to their family and something that's been passed down, and the history, going to these different towns and meeting all these other Irish people that are here in America, like that was huge for me because it was something I had never really looked into before.
Yeah, it's a neat story when you start talking to some of these people, like that pub that we were at in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, the last show on the
Yeah.
run that we did. And the two guys that owned that place were just, I think it was Declan was the one guy, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name off the top of my head, but they were both characters. And it was just funny hearing these stories. When you go into some of these traditional Irish pubs where the people that own it are Irish, anybody that's out there, please get a chance to talk with these people and hear their story about how they came here, whether it was their grandparents or themselves that came over here and found just a better future here in the United States.
Yeah, that bar especially was incredible because it was an older bar and
Mm-hmm.
older building, and so there was so much history. His wife took me around the bar and was like showing me all the art on the walls, and they were talking about the history of the town and how long this bar had been standing there and how long they've owned it and like all this great stuff and kind of you get like a lay of the land and I love that stuff. I'm such a history buff, you know. I love learning the backstory on people and towns and all that stuff. So man, I was in love that night.
It was a great slice of Americana, traveling around and going to all those different venues, all those places that we went to. That was a really, really good time. Now, you and I had worked together years ago back in Michigan, and
Yeah.
your act has evolved. I know it was literally this tiny little bar restaurant in the middle of nowhere, Michigan, and I think I literally drove
Middle of
by it.
nowhere.
You and I talked about this story on multiple occasions, and the show
Yeah.
was like at 6 o'clock at night on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, there is nobody going to be there. And we walked in, that place was packed. And it was a classic little small town, Midwestern buffet where you had your meatloaf, your fried chicken, your mashed potatoes, your green beans, and your iceberg
Yeah.
lettuce salad with your Thousand Island dressing and ranch. I think those were like your two choices. And the place was slammed, and we had an absolute blast. You and I hit it off. And
Oh yeah.
we've
Immediately.
done multiple gigs ever since then. Your act has evolved dramatically from the first time that you and I had worked together. How would you describe the transition from what you did years ago to what you are doing
Uh-huh.
now?
I talk about this a lot. The advice that I had gotten a few years ago after my parents had passed, I was still doing, my regular set and a lot. I was high energy and, I was moving around a lot and it was a lot of relationship jokes or, I always did personal stories, but they were like really punched up and character driven and high energy. And, I was talking to a couple friends of mine, one of them Leo Flowers, and he was talking about this concept of connecting versus killing. And he was talking about how it's such a different thing on stage when you're connecting. He's like, he goes, anybody could kill, open micers kill, but it takes somebody really special to connect with an audience. And that's something that I carried with me, and it made me think of all the people that I loved watching, like Bill Hicks and Richard Pryor and all these guys. I was like, oh yeah, I'm connecting with them because they're not just up there being like, isn't toast weird? They're actually telling you about trauma and their scars, and they're letting you in on these very almost like a secret. And that's what I think comedy should be. I think comedy should be just a little secret between you and I that night. You know what I mean? When you come out to a show, I want you to leave feeling like, oh wow, I didn't know that about them, and I didn't know that about myself. And I always connected with stuff like that, and it's something I always wanted to do. And then the other one that really got me thinking was my buddy Ricardo Flanagan, who just passed last year, and we were really close, and we used to have talks, late night talks till 3 or 4 in the morning when we'd hang, and we're talking about my parents and this and that, and he goes, all that stuff that you're not talking about, that's all the stuff they want to hear. And that was kind of the deciding factor of like, okay, I'm going to start opening up more because I'd always, again, done personal stories and stuff like that. And so what happens if I actually dig deeper and let this audience know about my parents passing and the kind of these dark little stories and secrets, about myself. And what I found was connecting on another level that I'd never experienced before. I was having people come up to me afterwards that were just like, literally a grown man was crying on my shoulder in Phoenix as him and his mother used to come out to the comedy shows all the time. And then she passed and he hasn't been since. And he came out to see my show and I'm talking about my dead mom and he, and he's, so you're having these experiences where there's a lot of that shared trauma out there that nobody is talking about. It's almost taboo. And what you realize is there are a lot of people going through shit that nobody's talking about. And that level of connection.
Everybody goes through stuff. Yeah, loss.
Yeah.
Personal trauma. It's illness, things like that too. So it's good when you can connect like that. Let me ask you this though, because I know that, and I do a line in my act about being a cancer survivor, but I don't go off on it because I just don't like. For me, talking about, hey, at time I was sitting in a chair getting chemotherapy for 2.5 hours and my hair's falling out. I'm like, and in my head, and this is just me. I mean, I want to I throw that out there just as a, listen, appreciate life, make yourself laugh every day. That's kind of the segue that leads into that. And then I just brush off of it and go away because I'm like, for me, I've never gotten to the point where I would be comfortable enough talking about sitting in a chair, getting chemotherapy and my hair falling out and going, okay, who wants to hear this while they're eating nachos at the, at the Chuckle Hut. So, and I guess that's something that maybe I'm, maybe I'm missing the boat on it, but I've just never gotten to that point where I was comfortable going further and further into that. But I've had more people have come up after a show and say, what kind of cancer did you have? So I mean, that's something that, because cancer affects everybody. I don't want to be, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. You going up on stage. I'm like, hey, we're laughing. I'm like, hey, let me take you down this slope. Here we go, kids. Now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Have you, as your act evolved and club owners and bookers were seeing you in their venues, and now all of a sudden they're like, hey, here's wacky Mike Malone. He's going to come up. He's going to dance around, with a banana stuck up his ass. And all of a sudden you go up on stage and you're like, yeah, so my mom died. And then have you gotten any pushback from people that had booked you and said, hey, that stuff you were doing when we first brought you here, could you go back to doing that? Because this is not what we expected.
It's interesting you bring that up. I had just recently in Minnesota, I was doing shows and I did the big closer the first 2 nights I was there, and then the third night we had kind of a light show, and so I didn't do it, and we're doing a shorter show, and one of the waitresses came up to me and she goes, you didn't do your big close? And I go, no, not tonight. And she goes, I liked it better. She goes, people aren't coming here to get sad, and it's
boy,
one of those things where it's on two fronts. One, it's not like I'm up there just like reading my diary, like, and then June 17th, mom, but you're like,
no, exactly. You're not doing some long drawn out TED talk that sucks.
Right. Yeah. It's punched up in a way that, and I found myself that this is kind of the pattern that I write, whether it's in film or storytelling or whatever. It's this roller coaster ride of like, oh, we're having fun. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we're having fun, and punch you in your gut. And now we're in the feels. And right when you feel like it's going to be uncomfortable or you start, feeling it all the way, I pull us back out and we're back having fun and we're having fun again. And then I punch you in your gut. And that's the kind of way that.
Why do you want to make your act like every relationship that I've had? Why do you insist on doing that?
A little bit of sugar makes the medicine go down, And I think as long as you you gotta hide the medicine in the peanut butter, you know what I mean? And
I'm with you. Totally understand.
And I think that's the key to it, is as long as the audience isn't bored or completely in it, I think you can still do both. And I think also when you are, when I'm talking to comics like you who just said, I don't feel comfortable in that, talking about this or staying, and that's just not my thing. It's not for everybody. It's not. And
Right.
it's not an enjoyable process. I'm not gonna lie to you. It sucks some nights. Two things. One, for me, what I found was that silence, that uncomfortability. That's where all the good shit is, man. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's where the fucking gold is. That's when you really get to say something. That's where all the good stuff is. And two, recently, and I've had to tell myself this, is I was listening to this podcast with Chappelle and Kevin Hart and Bill Burr, and they're talking about the old days. And Bill Burr's talking about coming up in Boston and New York, and when he wasn't getting the validation from the other comics that he thought he deserved, even though he was crushing and doing well. And comics like Rich Voss and Patrice O'Neal were giving him shit about not doing urban rooms or black rooms. And so it's easy for him to kill on the main stage, but like, why don't you come do these rooms and see if you kill? And Burr he took it, like a challenge. And he's like, all right, I'll go fucking kill in those rooms. And he did. And he learned how to kill in those rooms and in main rooms. And so he was undeniable. And that way, Voss and Patrice O'Neal and those guys couldn't bust his balls about not actually being a good comic. And Chappelle interrupted him and he said, you know what I love about that story is when you get into comedy, it's supposed to be for everybody. And you get trapped doing these main rooms, your funny bones, your improvs, whatever. And you're not doing these little side rooms or these urban rooms in these different towns because you're comfortable killing in the mainstream. Comedy needs to be for everybody. And those rooms that you're avoiding doing and that material that you're avoiding and all that stuff, like it needs to be for everybody. Now, flash forward, I'm working on this new stuff about mental health and suicide and depression and all these darker issues and very personal things. And I'm doing this little room out here in Ventura and it's half full. And a lot of the guys have like the trucker hats on and the flannel. And I'm like, oh, this mental health shit's not for this audience. And I was going to bitch out on that set, and I wasn't going to do those jokes. And then I thought about that podcast, and I thought about what Chappelle said and their conversation, and I had told myself, no, this needs to be for everybody. In order for this material to be undeniable, for this material to work, for this material to go out to the public, and record it later for a special, it needs to be for everybody. And I did that set that night, and it went great. And those guys with the fucking trucker hats on and the big manly men in the back, they came up to me afterwards and they were like, my father died of this, and he was struggling with mental health and all this stuff. And I wasn't gonna talk about it that night.
Right.
And I ended up connecting with that audience in a way that I didn't think that I could. And that's something that I took away from that night. And so when I think about going back to what you said about doing these comedy clubs where they're like, hey, you aren't the guy we started dating, 10 years ago. And I fuck differently now.
Wait,
I fuck differently now, but you're still going to get off.
You're not nice. You're not the guy that we dated initially. You started reading Deepak Chopra and you got all enlightened.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Exactly. Yeah, we're gonna go to the opera, but we get nachos afterwards. Like that's.
I'll tell you what, but that's huge though, because what you said right there about those guys in those trucker caps. I mean, the fact that just because they look a certain way or do a certain job doesn't mean that they're going through anything different than anybody else is going through at an improv in anywhere in the country. So it's just the fact that they ended up having to roll in that night wearing some dirty Levi's and a NASCAR shirt and a trucker cap, and it's and I'm sure the lady that told you needed Jesus, probably wasn't wearing that stuff. She probably came in dressed up looking nice. So you can never tell that whole the whole book by its cover thing. Now you've got a doc series that you've started now. and called Monsters. And let's go ahead and I want to pull up this video, and I want you to tell me about this thing because it's a 5-part series that is 5 episodes rolling on watchmonsters.com. I'm going to let you tell me about how this thing evolved and what this is about, because all the trailers I've seen on social media look real super cool. The way you put this thing together was very, very well done.
Thank you. It's a passion project for me. It's something I've been thinking about doing for a little while, and I originally pitched it to our good friend Brad Garrett to host, and I wanted to shoot it all in Vegas at his club and have him host because, as you know, working with Brad, he's really into, the self-care and the, addiction realm. And you talk till 3 or 4 in the morning with him about all these dark topics. And he's, he's been sober for, oh man, I think 20 some years now, something like that.
Yeah, a long time.
And so he's somebody that talked about sobriety and has had a lot of trauma in his life. And he's an open book, and so I originally pitched this series to him to do. And he had told me, he's like, this seems right up your alley. He's like, this seems like your vehicle. And so I came back to LA and we shot it in this little black box theater. Took 5 comics, and what I do is I showcase them on stage, just murdering. We did a 3-camera shoot. There's a lot of movement there, and then I sat down with them in the studio one-on-one, and we talked about the trauma that's hiding behind those punchlines. And each episode is dedicated to a certain topic. So Gabby, who you see on screen right now, hers is sobriety. Ginny Zagrino is about self-image. JC Carias is about drugs. Omid's about grief. Melissa Shoshahi is about family. And so you have all these things that these comics are dealing with, and it ties personally to them. And then I show them on stage killing, and then us in the studio, and then them on stage in the studio. So you get kind of like these flashes of both sides of each comic. And I'm gearing up to shoot a second season with 5 more comics here in Los Angeles. And so yeah, it's really fun and it's really unique, and I really love doing it.
I don't know why you're so biased to comedians in Los Angeles. You got one here in Las Vegas that special, but I got problems. Whatever. Just go ahead and shoot your special. Watchmonsters.com. You've got to see it. It's like I said, 5 episodes. The cool thing is the way you edited the whole thing together. Like each episode is how long?
They're like 25 minutes.
Yeah. That's
so
great.
it's super digestible, and like I said, the way it goes back and forth, it keeps it moving. So you have a lot of movement and energy when we're in the the little black box theater watching them. A lot of movement, and we shot it guerrilla style. Everything's handheld, so it feels like you're there. That's the way I like to shoot things. Is very enclosed. I like you to feel like you're in the audience that night,
right?
And so a lot of the shots are in between shoulders. There's a lot of movement there, and then when we're in the studio, it calms down, and you're one-on-one with them, and I add some music and stuff like that, almost like I don't know if your listeners listen to like This American Life or Radio Lab podcasts like that, that are more storytelling based, that have the music and the sound effect. That's what I layer into the interview segments, and so it gives another texture, another layer of emotion and connection when they're talking about things, whether it be happy or sad or whatever. The music will go with what they're talking about.
No, you've done a great job with that thing. Really, all the clips that I've seen online really, really look fantastic. And anything that you put your stamp on is always something that I know has a lot of passion and enthusiasm and focus behind it. Because you actually you produced a special for a friend of yours, Ken Garr, in Chicago. Now I want to ask you this: so what's involved in producing a comedy special? Because did you just take your friend's money and get a free trip to Chicago? What exactly?
I
because Ken seems like a really nice guy, and I can totally see you taking advantage of him.
I take advantage of Ken all the time. Yeah, he just doesn't.
Okay, cool.
No, Ken's a great friend, and he tours with me a bunch, and we had talked about this for a couple of years now. But before the pandemic happened, we were talking about shooting a a special, and it's something that I've been trying to get into more, is getting behind the camera more. And so I approached Ken. I was like, let me shoot an hour for you. And so we had talked about it, and he wanted to go back home to Chicago, and so that's what we did. And it was man, it was such a unique experience because I got to help him kind of shape the hour as well. And so we were going up to San Diego to run the hour, and then we'd be making notes and changes and like switching stuff around. And then we flew out to Chicago, and he was running it like 3 nights before the taping. And so we would hop over to the Laugh Factory and then Zany's and go here and there. We'd run the hour, and we'd make changes and we'd move stuff around. And it felt like like comedy should be. It felt like work. It wasn't just like, hey, we're going to Tampa and we're going to do these jokes and then we're going, grab a beer afterwards and go home. It was actually like working on the set, moving stuff around, shaping it, like really involved process with Ken, and it was great. And the night of the special, we did 8 cameras in a venue, which was just wild.
I don't think 8 cameras in an NFL game.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You got to get all the coverage, baby.
Man, that's impressive.
It looks incredible. I just put it all together last week. We just finished it, and it's just going to go out to get color corrected and all that stuff now. But man, it's beautiful. We shot at this venue called Joe's on Weed Street, and it's so funny when you look at this special. There's this wide shot, and you see these beautiful like rafters and the wood stage and these big red beautiful curtains, and like it's gorgeous. And if you were to point the camera the other way, you would see that it's a sports bar.
That's so funny.
It's in a back room of a sports bar that holds like 400 people. And so along both walls, there's like TVs and bars, stools, and like all that stuff. But in this main venue setting, there's this beautiful, like, looks like a theater. A lot of people film there. There's been a lot of comedy shows that do like one once a month, something like that. And so it's a great little venue. The crowds love comedy there, and it was such a great experience.
That was that's some cool footage, because I remember seeing some of the stuff when we were on the road together, and you were pulling up some of the stuff, and I'm like, this looks really impressive. And you were telling me all the behind the scenes stuff. You're like, yeah, flip the cameras around, and there's the there's the hockey game going on behind you, or the basketball game. So it's cool to be able to get the backstory behind how something like that's put together. So Ken Gar, it's called The American Hero is the special when it comes out, correct?
Yep. Yes. Nice.
Super cool. Now you've got you and I were talking about this on the road when we were doing the Irish Comedy Tour, and we had some pretty in-depth conversations in the van together. Yeah. And I remember at one point, Damon Liebert, the fiddle player, who is a dear friend of mine and yours now, we were in the van together, and you and I were kind of going back and forth about some stuff because you politically lean a little more left, I lean a little more right, but we had very intelligent, meaningful dialogue. And Damon was in the back seat. I remember he's sitting there going, "Are you guys going to fight or something?" I can't remember. It was so. It might not have been something like that. We didn't get that ramped up about it. But he was like, "Are you guys going to be okay?" I'm like, and it was almost like he was like the little kid in the back seat, and you and I were the parents in the front. I was almost going to turn back and go, "Shut up! Yeah. Suck on your juice box. We're fine. Mom and Dad are good up here. We're talking about stuff that doesn't involve you. So play with your toys." But we got to talking about the element of cancel culture and these trolls that end up, infiltrating your social media and can really just end up being just complete douchebags. And you had a situation that came up. Like there was, I'm going to pull up this one message that was sent to you, and then we're going to talk about the other side. This cracked me up. What did I want to kill myself just by looking you? That's how fucking depressing you are. So what I'm really impressed about is their lack of sentence structure, capitalization, and spelling. There's a lot wrong with this sentence. I mean, this really has the look of something that a serial killer would put together. Yeah,
and this is actually the first time that I shared.
And where did this happen? Where did this come on? Was this on your like Facebook or Instagram? What was this?
This
Okay.
is Instagram, yeah, and it was a reply to like a story. So one of the things we're talking about opening up and being more honest on stage and stuff. And so
Right.
I'm very honest about my mental health and depression and grief and all that stuff. And I put it out there to help people, but and let them know that they're not alone, because that's how I felt when I was dealing with it and I was at my worst. Was I felt
Right.
like, well, nobody else could feel this way. And the backfiring is sometimes people use it as a weapon. And so this is one of the examples of the messages that I get. Somebody who's creating these fake accounts. I've had to block, I think, 6 of them so far, but they'll use my depression or mental health against me and be like, go ahead and why haven't you killed yourself yet, pussy, and stuff like that. And really fun
That was the
stuff.
one I
And
sent. That was
even
my message.
yeah,
My
that was
message.
you. And now they've even slid into my girlfriend's DMs, and they'll be like, "When Michael finally kills himself, I'm gonna fuck you so good and take you out to dinner and all this." I'm like, okay, cool. so
That was
so
another one of
it's
my messages, but keep going.
yeah, that was also you. Yeah. So it's just I don't usually respond. I don't usually acknowledge any of it. And that was the first time I posted any of it, and then I shouldn't have, because then it almost, it's like when you deal with a heckler and you
Oh yeah.
open up a conversation with them, and then they were like, oh, I can take over the show now, and you're like, no.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what this is. And so I posted that, and then he started replying to people's comments and then making other fake thing and replying. And so I was just like blocking. So like 3 days after that, it was just me blocking comments, deleting stuff, blocking him, blocking. I was like, Jesus Christ, I shouldn't have fucking posted this thing. But I thought it was funny, and and I think that's the best thing that you can do when you receive that kind of hate is just you can't you have to reject it, right? Like, I'm not going to
Right.
accept that. That's not, you know what I
No.
mean? And also it's not my job to fix that person. I'm not going to, cause your immediate reaction is just to like kill mode. You're just like, oh, you want to fuck with
Yeah.
me?
Uh-huh. Oh
You don't
yeah.
know the rules. Like, don't fuck with a comedian. And you can just unleash them
Right.
and, just verbally assault them. And you're like, well, no, that's not the answer, because it just leads to more back and forth. Right. And so, and then the other response you have is, oh, I'm gonna try and fix them. I'm gonna let them know that. Now, fuck that.
No.
They're not gonna learn. They're not gonna change. This is a toxic trait that they have, that they feel like this is something that they are able to do and want to be doing. And so the best thing you can do is just fucking ignore it. I don't accept that. I don't care about that. I don't.
Right.
That's great. You want to waste your day making fake accounts and telling me to kill myself? Awesome. That's great. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't get that. I simply don't understand. And we were talking about toxicity from either side, whether it's hard left or hard right.
Right.
Hard left or hard right people, anytime you have that level of rage that's coming, it's like that's not where most of the people in the planet lie, but that's where the media seems to want to hang, because that's where it keeps people interested and engaged, and people think, oh, what, the whole country's racist? Yes, we're all racist, or somebody's like, oh my God, everybody Republican loves Trump. It's like, no, not everybody Republican loves Trump. So it's, so you can't have hard left and hard right. I think there's no productivity with any of that stuff. And we were talking about like stuff that I had personally gone through when I had somebody, attack me on the hard left. And, like I was start to reply to people on Twitter. Somebody makes some stupid, nasty comment, and I would post like little GIFs of like panda bears rolling around and like, and kittens playing with yarn. And they, if you fight anger with insanity,
right,
there's no response. There's no like lower back. Oh, cats are what you bring to the game, and like, yeah, here's more.
Yeah.
So now here's a little basket of kittens with little ribbons on them.
You gotta kill them with kindness.
Exactly. Or it was just, it was so stupid. And that really seemed to me, I got more enjoyment out of finding these little videos and clips like that to respond back. Or there was like one, somebody made some stupid comment and there was a unicorn that was jumping over a rainbow just repeatedly. And it said something like, have a happy day, something stupid like that.
Right.
Because you had somebody that came after you because during pandemic, during lockdown, you had thrown out, and everybody was going through their own issues during the pandemic as far as not being able to go out there and do shows and do what we love and making money, whether it was comedians, musicians, or really anybody for that matter.
Right.
You could have been in any profession, and you again, if you weren't deemed essential, you were suffering from some financial loss. So you had gone ahead and threw out a GoFundMe thing, which is completely cool and chill to do. And you were very honest about it. You told me about the post that you had made. And then some knucklehead like jumped on you for doing this. Some hard far right guy had hopped on you. And you were telling me this. And I go, that's what I remember us talking in the car. And I go, I want to get you back on the podcast and I want to talk about this.
Yeah, it was something I hadn't experienced in that way before. It was okay. So to start, during the lockdown, there were the first few weeks everything shut down, and then it turned into 3 weeks, and then like a month, and then I was like, oh, I don't know when things are going to open up. All of my tour dates have been canceled for the next like 6 months, and I don't know what's going to happen here. And so I had my 1 hour special that was almost a year old or coming up on being a year old, and it was only available on Amazon Prime, or you could download it or whatever for money. And so I was putting up a download link. You can own my special, and I put up a donation button, and I was like, pay whatever you want and you can have my special. Like, this is a fair trade. I felt like was like art for money, and I'd put, I don't know when things are going to go back to normal again, and this and that. This is how we make, usually a lot of us make our bread and butter doing touring and doing our live shows. And I don't know when that's going to be. So, again, fair exchange. You get a download. I get whatever. If you want to give me $1, give me $1. I don't give a shit. Whatever. You own the special. And, I was looking up different ways to get a donation link that wasn't through PayPal because I was having trouble with the coding for whatever reason. Sure. And I came across GoFundMe. And I was like, oh, yeah, people use GoFundMe all the time. I'll just put up that, whatever. And that, I guess, was the wrong move. Apparently, GoFundMe is reserved in society for people with, like, medical issues or this or that, or like lost their home, or these kind of like emergency things where you're really helping out a family or somebody like that. And I didn't realize that was the social etiquette for that. And so I had this podcaster who was on the far right who just nailed me, just like did a segment on me about about how I'm using a GoFundMe and how that's so wrong, and how I need to just buckle down and get a job, and like, all this stuff. And then I responded by putting out an episode responding to him like, hey, this, and I was very honest on the podcast about breaking down shows and money and this and that. And like, here's what most of the artists that you love, here's what they're making. I remember doing theater shows back in the day for National Lampoon's Wounded Warrior Project in Indiana, and we were doing arenas. I mean, outdoor arenas for 1,600 people, sometimes 3,000 people, and I was making $100 a show, and I was headlining those shows. And I remember sleeping in my car in Walmart to do, showcases, this and that. So I was sharing those kind of things. I'm like, a lot of these people that you love are making no money, and they're doing it because they love their craft and whatever. So then that was the wrong move. And he put out an entire episode about me, and just like dismantling, just like telling me that I need to, again, get a job, then quit comedy, it's not for me, and all the stuff. And then when that episode dropped, I mean, dozens of emails I was getting in my Facebook of like, people just going through my comments or whatever, like, get a job, you pussy, and like, what the quit comedy, you're no good, kill yourself, all this stuff. And then one guy was going through every picture I had, and how much was that shirt? You need to return it. How much was that hat? I bet that hat cost money. Return that hat. Hey, take those jeans back. How much you got money for those jeans, don't you? And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And
Who has time for this?
I didn't know any better, and he kept responding on there was a hat that I used to wear. It was a brown hat, kind of like Burt Kreischer wears. And every post that had that hat in it, he would comment on it. And then he slid in my DMs, and for days, multiple times a day, how much that hat cost? Tell me how much that hat is. How much that hat cost? And finally, I responded with anger. Again, like a heckler, you shut him down. Right. And so I said, I don't know how much the hat cost. Your mom bought it for me for fucking her so good. And well,
I'm sure that calmed him down.
Yeah, and then what happened was he played the victim. He flipped it on me.
No, yeah, so I remember you telling me this.
Poking me. It was, oh my God, I can't believe that you would attack me like that. You're supposed to be about empathy. You're supposed to be about helping people. You're supposed to be about mental health. You're supposed to be you're not who you say you are. I knew that you were a liar, and you're just, and now he's the victim because I let out in anger. And, wow. And so that was what I would get pushback from the far right it was what I found was poking until you go, all right, dude, what the fuck? And then they go, whoa, hey, wait a minute. And you go,
yeah,
you've been poking me for fucking literally months. And now I retaliate, and you're like, this guy's crazy. No, I've reached my limit. And that's why I don't respond to these
defending
guys.
Yourself, exactly.
Exactly. This person who keeps creating fake accounts, who keeps coming after me, that's why I don't shut them down so hard, is because I know the minute I do, it's going to be, what, you all saw that, right? You guys saw that, and then it,
you lit the fuse. Yeah, and all of a sudden you're the one who threw the stick of dynamite into the
exactly.
Into the party,
and what we were talking about in the difference between dealing with the far right and the far left is I feel like the far left already jumps to that conclusion. They already made up their mind about you without, I think a lot of us are guilty of that. You read something about somebody and that's the thing about them. And so you read a tweet and you go, you're a racist, you're this, you're that. And you're like, whoa, what the fuck? I think that's what it is. There's no pre-poking beforehand with the left, but it automatically goes to, you are the worst person in the world. And with the right, I feel like, with the far right, whatever, I feel like it goes the opposite way, where it's poke, reaction, then all of a sudden, whoa, hey. And we're dealing with that. We live in such a gotcha culture that that's all that people care about, is that moment. They just want that moment to go, I got you. Here's a screenshot. Here's a video. Here's a whatever. Even me saying that right now about the far left and how we make those assumptions.
Sure.
Somebody could easily screen grab that and be like,
oh, absolutely.
He hates the far left. He hates liberal. That's not what I'm saying.
No one's gonna listen to the entire context of our conversation. They're gonna be, like you said, they're looking for that gotcha moment. They're looking for that one sentence in the middle of something that's gonna say, Mike Malone says, he's racist. It's like, no, that wasn't the case at all. And by the way, I saw somebody put something on GoFundMe a long time ago, looking for money to help develop a potato salad recipe. Seriously. So yeah, unless the potato salad recipe is going to help generate money to bury grandma, no.
Yeah,
so,
and
people are idiots.
The thing is that's for me when I'm, I for your listeners, I developed a show a few years ago during the Trump presidency to hear both sides of the story. We called it We the People, and it was two people from the left, two people from the right, and I would moderate for a while, and then we had Ben Glebe doing it. And we would talk about 3 trending topics and try to meet in the middle on a resolve, whether it be funny or real. And we were talking about everything, kneeling in football to gun control to abortions to giving teachers guns, all that stuff. We discussed all of it, and it was with journalists and with comedians and with people from all walks of entertainment.
Sure.
Coming together and having a conversation, because that's what I feel like is lacking right now. Nobody is having a conversation. And that's where I feel everything is in the context. When people say, oh, he said this. Well, how did he say it? Did he just say the word? There's a difference between saying the word and just saying, or whatever. They're like saying something and then giving an example, or again, like, it's context.
Right.
Context is key. So before I agree with anybody, any headline that's like this person's racist or sexist or any kind of ism, I look at the full context and be like, okay, this is a perfect example. The other day, and this is, I voted for Biden, but I feel like I had to. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't even in my top 5.
No, you and I talked about this. I mean, it wasn't so much that you loved him. It's the fact that you just did not care for Trump at all, period. Which, to me, Biden was to 2020 what Trump was to 2016. I've said that multiple times. I mean, I don't think people loved to vote for Donald Trump. I just think they hated the fact that Hillary Clinton was running, and they were tired of the Clintons making an appearance on the political scene. So I've said that multiple times, and I've had friends on both sides go, "Oh, that's not the case. Right. No, that's not it." I go, "That's exactly it." But whatever. I digress.
Well, do I like Joe? Do I believe in Joe? Sure. But was he in my top 5? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Wasn't even close to my top 5. And that's okay. I can still support him and not worship or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, where's your Biden flag? I don't even have an Obama flag, and I loved Obama. You know what I mean? Like, I got nothing. Anyways, I said all that to say this for people that are like, oh, he's just a hardcore. Here's my thing about misconception, and context is key. And this is I'm just using this as an example because it's a trending thing that's happening.
Sure.
There's a video going around right now of Joe Biden at the podium shaking hands with an invisible man. And he turns to his right and he does one of these, and then he moves on. And that was the clip that you saw, and it went viral, and everybody was talking about, this guy doesn't even know where he is. Look at this fucking idiot. He's so dumb. He's shaking hands on it. The context is there are people sitting on both sides behind him, behind the podium. And if you get a wide shot, he turns and he does this to them. And if you watch the video, he turns to this side and does this to this side and then walks off as if to say, thank you, and leave. He's not shaking hands with an invisible fucking person. He's acknowledging people that are sitting behind him. So that's a quick example of where the media runs with something, or it goes viral, and then that's the only thing you hear about it, and there's no context, there's no explaining. It's just Joe Biden has dementia. And you're like,
well, and that was the same thing that they were doing with, and again, these are conversations like you and I were having in the van when we were driving around. It was just the same thing when they said, well, Trump said drink disinfectant. No, he didn't.
Right.
When the pandemic first broke out, it was like, no, he didn't say that. For the same reason, no, Joe wasn't shaking hands with an invisible person. It's like, did you pay any attention? Did you read it all? Like, everything always, like, conversations today people seem to mimic what they see on television. They think that conversations are like what happens on MSNBC when they have their panel of 4 people, or Fox.
Yeah.
And it's 4 people yelling at each other, over the top of each other. No one's making any sense. And then all of a sudden they go to a commercial break with Mike Lindell from MyPillow.
Yep. And that was what we discovered.
When you're tired of arguing, here's a soft place to rest your head.
My buddy Kengar, who we talked about earlier, we developed We the People together, and that was one of the big things. It was when you turn on TV and you have these round tables, even on Bill Maher, they're just yelling at each other. Nobody's actually having a conversation. I shouldn't say they're yelling at each other. I should say they're talking until Bill Maher yells at them.
It's true. It's true. That's like the moderator for every one of these shows. You're right, though.
Yeah,
You're spot on.
so we wanted a place where you could actually have conversations and again try and try and find resolve for these issues. And what we ended up doing when Ben Glebe came on board was he had an idea to have a town hall meeting is what we called it at the end of each show. And so we would discuss these 3 segments, and at the end we would open it up to the audience. And the audience was able to ask questions to the panel about what we discussed and have a further discussion or maybe something that we missed, about those issues. And so, it was really interesting. I really missed doing that show, and I wish we could have done on a larger scale. We did it once a month here in LA, and then we ended up going to Politicon. And we sold out a little space there in Politicon with 300 or 400 people there, and it was a really great debate. And Michael Loftus was a part of that. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, no, it seems like it'd be a great platform for even for PBS, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was super interesting, and again with the comedy element, because we always had a comedian on each side, and then the other person would be a journalist or a news anchor or somebody like that in the realm. Yeah. But we always had a comedian on each side, and we had a comedian hosting. So again, man, a little bit of sugar makes the medicine go down. And when you can punch up,
absolutely, you need to have that element of funny thrown in there. Yeah, no, exactly. I agree 100%. You've got a special out here called Wait and See. You were shooting that right when we got done with the Irish Comedy Tour. You went literally right into the this little space to go edit and record this. As we kind of wind things down here, please tell me about Wait and See, which is coming out on May 6th is when it's released. Where can people get this?
It'll be streaming on YouTube, or you can go to my website, malonecomedy.com. I'm also doing a online viewing party. I'm teaming up with Nowhere Comedy Club. It's Ben Glebe's club. It's all virtual. And so I'm doing a special viewing 2 days before. So on May 4th, if you want to join me and Ben and some friends, we're going to be streaming it live. And then afterwards, I'm going to be doing a question and answer, and Ben's going to host it and navigate those questions and stuff. And Ben, of course, is from Chelsea Lately and Idiot Test on Netflix and Ice Age 2 and Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back funny. And like all these great stuff.
Funny, dude.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, they're going to have to go into a time machine to do this because this episode drops on May 5th.
Okay, great. Perfect. So May 4th,
so
I'll be there.
Get in your DeLorean, get it up to 88 miles an hour with Doc, and go back one day.
It'll be out on YouTube.
Let me ask you this. Now, are you recording this and going to play it and do the Q&A thing? Are you going to play it back? Is that going to be available?
Well, I haven't thought about it till just now, but yes.
I think that's a great idea. No, I think that would be cool for people that don't get in on it at the time, or then they go ahead and they see your special, but then the follow-up to it is going to be, hey, here's some people that had, we did a Q&A, we did a live viewing party, and then here's the questions that they had, which could be the questions that that person might have had. So
and the special itself is really, really personal, and something that I, with Laugh After Death, my last special, I opened up with the audience in the closing, big ending piece was about 15 minutes, and it's all about losing my parents and going to therapy for the first time and all this stuff, and how I was feeling and dealing with that. And this one goes even deeper into that. I just lost my grandmother last April, and she was kind of like the last pillar to fall in my childhood. I was raised by pretty much just her and my mother, and then
I remember you always talking about your grandma.
Yeah, always super important in my life, and she just passed, and so it's kind of dedicated to her. It's almost like a tribute to her, and it opens
That's
up.
Cool.
It's only a half-hour special, and it opens up talking about her being in hospice and really funny hospice jokes. and what that was like.
I can guarantee you right now, there is not a podcast out there anywhere, or really a conversation anywhere. This is now back-to-back podcast episodes where a sentence came out of somebody's mouth that like the last episode I did with Matt McClowry, he had said something that I guarantee you there's no other conversation anywhere on the planet happening like this. So I guarantee you there is not a sentence coming out of anybody's mouth saying real funny hospice jokes. Which I don't know if it's too late to change the name of the special. But instead of wait and see, real funny hospice jokes.
Real funny hospice jokes.
Which
and then so it opens up talking about her and like our relationship and then it digs deeper into, you know, suicide and depression and grief and dealing with that and how to get out of that and what I did and yeah, and so it's kind of hard to describe. It's more
it's about life. I
storytelling.
mean, people go through this stuff, and I think it's good to see it. I mean, you don't sit down with a big bowl of popcorn and a 12-pack and go, all right, here's the part.
Yeah. I was talking to my buddy. I was talking to my friend Nikki Winkleman, and she's another comic, and she goes, I saw your special, and I go, yeah, it's not really comedy anymore. It's more like TED Talks, and she goes, more like dead talks. So I like to say that's what I do now. I do dead talks. So
you do dead talks.
If you're into dark little jokes about life and death and all of that stuff, if you're into that darker material, this is for you.
Here's the new headline on your website. Mike Malone. If you feel bad about yourself, watch this.
You know, throughout the special, I kept saying, let's get darker. And I think that's going to be a theme, at least a T-shirt.
That's funny. Well, that's a good T-shirt. That's some good merchandise to sell to the Jesus lady at the next show in Texas that you do.
Yeah.
Three random questions here for you as we wrap up. By the way, MaloneComedy.com is your website. The special Wait and See comes out on May 6th. You can also pick up a copy of your book, Dead Serious, off of your website, also on Amazon, all those other platforms. And the special Laugh After Death is available right now on Amazon. People should see that. And more importantly, they should see this sexy bearded apostle when he joins us on the Irish Comedy Tour. Go to theirishcomedytour.com. We're going to post all the upcoming dates for 2023, which we've got a lot coming up. I'm super, super excited to get a chance to work with you again in that arena. That was such a good time. Oh, but three random questions here for you. Okay. No wrong answers. These are just going to be answers that you come up with, my friend. I know you're very good off the cuff, so don't disappoint me. Here we go. What's Teach for America using to inspire inner city students to succeed?
Oh man, I don't
What's
know.
Teach for America using to inspire inner city students to succeed?
Jesus, I can't answer
that. Yes, you can. Answer it. Answer the damn question.
Dime bags.
Perfect. That's a great answer. Here we go. Oh, and this will be perfect for you. We were just talking about this amazing lady in your life. What would Grandma find disturbing yet oddly charming?
Oh man. You know, I do a can I do one of the jokes from the special?
Go for it.
See, I do a joke about how I didn't get to go back for her funeral because, you know, COVID and all, they're keeping us safe and all this stuff. And but I did write something for her funeral, and we were very close, and I did write something for her funeral, and then I take out my phone like I'm going to read this big special thing, and I go, finally. And I think you know who will love that joke.
I can see your grandma looking down would find that disturbing yet oddly charming. So very, very well played. Last question. Last question. During sex, I like to think about blank.
Oh, you know. More
Don't
sex?
say hospice. That'll really creep it out.
Honestly, I think it's more sex. Don't you feel that
So
way
when
when you're having sex?
when you're in the
I can't
act,
do this
you're in the
again.
act of having sex. You're looking forward to sex like the next day.
I can't wait to do this again. It's like when I eat, I'm like, oh boy, I can't wait to do this again.
You're a forward thinker. That more people need that energy and that mentality. Don't throw that energy up to God. Throw that positive energy back inside. You're having sex now. Think about more sex down the road. My friend, great to see you. I can't thank you enough for your time as always. Good luck with the special with Ken Gar, and good luck with your special Wait and See, which is out May 6th. Again, go to his website, malonecomedy.com, and grab a copy of his book, Dead Serious, and also see the special Laugh After Death on Amazon. My friend, I love you. You know that, brother.
Love you so much. Thanks for having me.
You're awesome, bud. Mike Malone here on A Drink with Derek. Can't thank him enough for his time. And again, one of the funniest people that I've ever had a chance to work with, and just an even better person, great friend. And again, see his website, malonecomedy.com. Also go on Dry Bar Comedy. My special is out right now. It's called Last Call. Go in and type in the promo code Derek Richards. If you subscribe to Dry Bar, you get 1 month absolutely free with the promo code Derek Richards. Lots of fantastic specials on there. It is squeaky clean comedy shot in Provo, Utah, and also grab a copy of my album Double Down, shot in actually recorded live in Laughing Comedy Cafe in Fort Myers, Florida. Available on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon. Also go to my website, DerekRichards.com, and see when I'm going to be playing in your neighborhood. Also go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. Not only do you get all the episodes of Drink with Derek, you get all kinds of other comedy clips and goofy stuff on there as well. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today at Drink with Derek. I will see you next time. Goodbye.
You're watching Conservative Television of America, working hard to stick socialism where the sun don't shine.